good morning or good evening or afternoon, wherever you are at. So I did a video a while ago about faith, right? And what faith is. And faith is just the confidence and the hope that it will actually happen. And in the Bible, there is great examples of ordinary people with extraordinary faith. For me, sometimes it's very difficult for me to have faith, especially when things are not going the way I would want them to go or things aren't going the way I think they should go. And then I look in the Bible, especially in Hebrews chapter 11, which consolidates all these individuals, ordinary people with extraordinary faith. And when I look at that, I see that, hey, these people had bigger issues, more stringent, bigger obstacles than I myself am going through, right? I'm worried about getting back to work. My knee's not healing right, and I have to have faith that God is going to keep us afloat. And He has done that. He's been very faithful, and He has allowed us to continue living. All our bills are getting paid. So first, I want to say thank you to God for that. I have faith that He's going to take care of me. But sometimes I get very impatient, and I pray to God, and I'm like, God, just let me get back to work. I don't care that I'm healed. Let me just get back to work. And I hear a still voice that says, wait. Um, Pain still in the knee, inflammation still in the knee, hurts to bend. Gonna have to go back to school. I'm waiting on LNI to um, grant my functional capacity exam so I know where I stand, and just waiting and waiting and waiting. And I become very impatient. But when I look in Hebrews chapter 11, and I'm going to go over this and the people in there, um, I draw strength from that. And every so often, this is a reminder for me to go back to. So when I'm struggling with my own faith, I'm like, let me go back into Hebrews chapter 11 and let me look at some of these individuals in there and what they went through. What they went through is far more than what I did. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this. So bear with me. This is kind of lengthy. I'm going to try to make it quick, but it's kind of lengthy. So it says in Hebrews 11, starting in verse 4, chapter 11, verse 4, and I'm going to just read certain sections. I'm not going to go over the whole thing because it's very lengthy. It says, it was by faith that Abel brought a more acceptable offering to God than Cain did. In verse 5, it says, it was faith that Enoch was taken up into heaven without dying. Verse 7, it was by faith that Noah built a large boat to save his family from the flood. Verse 8, it was by faith that Abraham obeyed God when he was called to leave his home and go to another land that God would give him as his inheritance. Verse 11, it was by faith that even Sarah was able to have a child, though she was barren and was too old. Verse 17, it was by faith that Abraham offered Isaac as a sacrifice when God was testing him. Verse 20, it was by faith that Isaac promised blessings for the future to his sons, Jacob and Esau. Verse 21, it was by faith that Jacob, when he was old and dying, blessed each of Joseph's sons and bowed in worship as he leaned on his staff. Verse 22, it was by faith that Joseph, when he was about to die, said confidently that the people of Israel would leave Egypt. Verse 23, it was by faith that Moses' parents hid him for 3 months when he was born. Verse 24, it was by faith that Moses, when he grew up, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter. Verse 29, it was by faith that the people of Israel went right through the Red Sea as though they were on dry ground. Verse 30, it was by faith that the people of Israel marched around Jericho for 7 days and the walls came crashing down. Verse 31, it was by faith that Rahab, the prostitute, was not destroyed with the people in her city who refused to obey God. Verse 32, it would take too long to recount the stories of the faith of Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, David, Samuel, and all the prophets. By faith, these people overthrew kingdoms, ruled with justice, received what God has promised them. So when I look at some of these people, Abraham had to sacrifice his son. If God told me to sacrifice my children, could I do that? No. Would I have faith that things would work out? That's a pretty tall order. I don't know if I could have that. Or what about, Moses, his parents? They hid him for 3 months. This is their newborn child, a child that was carried in the mother's womb. And the parents said, hey, we have to have faith. Let's hide him for 3 months and then we'll come get him. We have faith in that. Could you just give up your child? That's a tall order to ask. Or how about when Abraham, actually, not people, but when Abraham had to build the ark and people were making fun of him, people weren't listening to him. And it was by faith that he did this to save his family. The ridicule, the knowing what was going to happen. What about Sarah? Her faith, saying, hey, I am of a seasoned age and I'm barren. I can't have children. But she had faith that she would have a child. Now, these are ordinary people with extraordinary faith that have gone through far more difficult situations and times than we do today. So I say to you, let this be the example of the faith that we should have. Let's look to Hebrews chapter 11 and look at that example of faith. And let's encourage ourselves and each other to have the very faith that these people had, that these individuals had. And as you can tell, there were so many more people who had faith also. Extraordinary faith. So again, look at Hebrews chapter 11, verses 4 through 40. And it will describe all these different individuals that had this extraordinary faith. And let that be an encouragement to you today. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and close. I love you guys. God bless. Stay in love. Stay in the Word. Be encouraged.